All men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
Life, liberty, and the
If liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear.
Make America great again.
The Big Mig.
Welcome back to the Big Mig Show. I'm your host, Lance Migliaccio, with my co-host, Ride or Die, George Ballantine, tip of the spear, edge of the knife. You know how we do it on this show. George, what's up, brother? How are you, man?
Lance, I was running around wild. I didn't know if you were going to make this morning. I haven't heard from you. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I was slammed. I had so much going on.
And there's no thumbnail. I'm like, I need to get a good picture. I was looking for pictures of Rex. There wasn't really.
You know, the problem is I grabbed what I thought was Rex. I thought it maybe was a younger photo of him. It was like a cowboy modeling photo. And I thought, man, I don't know if this is him, but we didn't get any photos. So and the truth, like they
Thank
said,
God.
The internet was scrubbed of so much of that material because of what happened to him and his father. And I almost made you look like, I almost made Rex look like he was a superstar cowboy modeling guy online, full head of hair. Again, I was guessing. I mean, you see me, he and I are like-minded when it comes to our, follicular challenge we're facing. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. We're excited that he's here. He's a great guy. He's been in the fight for a long time. Before we start, of course, if you love the show, you guys know the drill. Thumbs up, comment, share, and subscribe. If you can do the paid subscription, we always really greatly appreciate that. Rumble rant tips, always appreciated. All those tips and everything you guys do, those rants, all go back into the show. There's tremendous overhead. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about graphic artists or design or software, hardware. We spend a ton to do these shows, and we spend a lot of our time. And again, it's all to do that. And if you'd like to sponsor the show, you can hit us up over at info@thebigmig.com. Hopefully you watched the Crypto Power Hour today, 7 a.m. on Wednesdays, 7 a.m. on Fridays. And that is the #1 crypto show on Rumble based on views. Still is. We're back on YouTube, but we're rebuilding. But that crypto show, if you want to get it from the ground up, if you want to figure out what crypto is all about, we break it down for newbies. We do advanced. We get great interviews. We'll go over the big projects. We don't do a lot of meme coin stuff because, that's really volatile and dangerous. So we try to stick with the major projects. It's here to stay. Hopefully they'll get some movement on the Clarity Act. But besides crypto, George and I love our gold and silver. We're talking about the guys at Genesis Gold Group. Doesn't matter whether it's an IRA or their prepper bar. And this is the 62.2 gram prepper bar, available in gold and silver. It comes with an assay report. If you see when I tilt the bar, there's 3 different denominations. You can break off a small piece to make a payment. And, gold and silver, doesn't matter whether it's for diversification, asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or in case of the prepper bar, it's very unique utility for barter and trade. Makes a perfect gift for everybody. I still have the gold and silver my dad gave me when I was a child. We used to get some every year at Christmas. I've saved it. I've held it. I'll be passing it on to my daughter. And that's the whole thing about it. If you don't need it, that's an opportunity. It's kind of a generational wealth thing. And for those of us who have held on to gold and silver for a long time, of course, amazing prices. I believe there's a future shortage of silver coming out. But look, head over to thebigmigbar.com. That QR code will take you there directly if you want the easy way. George always tries to make it easy for you guys. Take a snapshot. BigMigBar.com. Now pay close attention. Here's your promo code. Big Mig Silver, 10% off on prepper bars. Big Mig Gold, 5% off on your gold prepper bars. Or you can call them at 888-526-7154. 888-526-7154. TheBigMigBar.com.
No singing today.
No singing. George's not going to do the jingle.
All right, here you go.
Break me off a piece of that prepper bar.
George usually goes along with that, but I'm sure Rex will be disappointed because he came here strictly for your singing, George. I know he did.
I don't think so.
But anyway, look.
This is our true show, tip of the spear. We don't lie here, so.
We don't. Well, I don't know, man. You've told some tall tales about yourself, I think, a couple
Negative,
of
Ghost Rider. Not happening.
Yeah. All right, well, listen, we're excited.
It's Wednesday, right?
It is Wednesday. I'm trying to get George to get new material. He likes to pop out with Wednesday. It's hump day. It's hump day.
Well, it's hump day. I call it hump week because I'm single, but it's.
I'm going to send you in for some stand-up comedy routines. I think you need more comedy.
No, thank you.
I think we need to get you
No,
down.
I'm just gonna
Well,
go.
you got singing lessons. I'm just trying to make you a full, well-rounded entertainer, bro.
All right,
That's
thanks.
it.
Appreciate
There's
it.
no business like show business, buddy. There's no business.
All right,
like
let's get down to business here.
Yeah, let's get Rex in here. There's a lot to cover. He is just as well, maybe even more well-read than us. He's always on top of what's going on. And at the end of the day, you know what it is, guys. It's always trying to find all the top stories and the top interviews, because this is not mainstream media. You come here because we're your source, we're your go-to place to get the truth, edge of the knife, tip of the spear. Let's welcome Rex Jones.
You're not gonna do his bio?
I am. I'm going to wait till he comes
All
on.
right, welcome to the Big Mig Show, Rex Jones. What's up, bro?
I'm just enjoying it, man. It's like I'm back at the office. I love y'all's banter. It's like what I grew up with.
Oh,
So-
you
Yeah,
haven't seen nothing
of
yet.
course. Yeah, we're just warming up, man. It can get ugly here. And, of course, our second language is sarcasm. I grew up in the Bronx and Georgia's, New York and New Jersey. So, we grew up on the street just hacking on people, so it's a second language on this show. And of course, with what the news cycles are like, you got to have some fun. But let me just give the bio really quickly. So Rex Jones, you guys know him. He's an anti-war activist, independent journalist, and proponent of total human freedom worldwide and individual liberty. He's a former political pundit and reporter at Infowars. Rex was deeply embedded in one of the most high-profile and controversial alternative media platforms in the country, and that's a mouthful and a total truth there. In 2018, he directly experienced the massive big tech censorship purge that deplatformed Infowars and many of its contributors across YouTube, Facebook, Apple, and just about every platform that I ever listened to or watched his dad on. An event that, of course, solidified his lifelong commitment to free speech and uncensored journalism. Right now, he hosts New American Journal and Gray Area Talks, providing hard-hitting geopolitical insight and honest conversations to cut through war propaganda from all sides. All right, let's dig in. I'm sure he's got plenty of other things he can tell us about he's up to. Rex, man, appreciate, first of all, taking the time out. I know you got a full plate. You're always a very busy guy. But thanks for being here, man.
He was actually, you know what? Sorry, Rex. I'm gonna give props to you. He was early. He was 15 minutes early to set up with me. You weren't even there. I was shocked.
Are you saying he's a professional?
He is. You know why? He was actually. I was on X and I realized he was doing his show this morning right before he came on here.
Well, the thing for me is like what you guys do is what I love. Like I love alternative media. I grew up in basically the birthplace of alternative media. Like I like to say Rogan invented podcasting mass scale. My dad invented broadcasting mass scale. The reason why, in large part, we're in a studio like this, y'all are in yours, I'm in mine, doing this, actualizing our dreams of doing media ourselves and not being reliant on a corporate interest or a corporate sponsor, is because of these giants that walked before. So when I see y'all doing your show, when I see other people do their shows, when I do mine, I do that in the spirit that I grew up in, because it truly is a beautiful thing.
Well, thank you.
And we appreciate that, and to be honest with you, your dad was such an innovator, right? He was out there so early. I think what he started when he was 18 or 19 years old, right? Radio. Sure. And, I think he left an indelible mark for people that wanted the truth. What I was going to say backstage when we had to get in here, guys, we were talking backstage, we were almost late. It's because your dad has he's a very strange thing. It's an uncanny ability to recognize the truth, almost like a savant style kind of I don't want to say apostle because that almost sounds religious, but I've always been so shocked about how accurate he's been, not necessarily in the immediate timeline, but as it progresses forward 6 months, 12 months.
He's a futurist. That's the thing. And I've
unbelievable.
Up close, and it is truly crazy. It's truly uncanny. It's not just the news, it's other things as well. Some people just have that gift, but what it truly comes down to is nobody's consumed more information than my father. And once you consume that level of information, think about this, okay? Because people often come up to me on social media or in person, both cases is true, and they'll say, what did you ever do? Didn't push hard enough, Rex, YZ, you're a fraud, blah, blah, blah. Where is your 32-year show? 6 days a week, 3 hours a day. That's what my father did. And basically no one else has been able to put that together. And that's why you can see some of the long-term predictions and some of the things that he said track. No one else has that track record because they haven't been going that long, So it's both that he's correct, and the length of time that he's been correct over has been pretty insane.
Dad's been on point with some of his stuff. I got to give that man credit.
Even the meme that went so viral about it's turning the frogs gay, there was so much truth in that. People make fun of that without realizing that the incredible accuracy of it.
Sure.
And that's what's always been I think that's because he, again, I know he gets, he's really in depth as far as his excitement, his emotional attachment. You can feel it come through on the shows. But I think that anybody that's in media, if you haven't really taken some Alex Jones lessons, meaning that really surveilled his craft, whether it's his body language or his hand movement, or, I don't know if even he was the first guy that ever did the overhead camera on the documents.
Overhead shot, please. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Which is incredible, right? In itself, the innovation,
Yeah, no, sure. And I mean, like, that was all created literally. So the office that I spent 17 years in, the office that they moved to when I was like, a little kid, like 6 or 7 years old, they started off with like 4 people in that building. They ended up expanding to 78. Okay. And that happened, over the course of like, 15 to 16 years. And then with the drop off, the lawsuits and everything, that all went away. Nobody gave him, like Cenk Uygur, Young Turks, Gawker, Vice Media, all these companies, they're given tens, if not hundreds, if not billions of dollars to be lost leaders and to just, prop up and push whatever message they have going out. We never did that. It was all dependent on kind of like what you guys do with the sponsor, the viewer, the listener out there resonating with the message of the show, wanting more people to hear it and choosing to buy the product. And people have come after us specifically for being grifters, for selling snake oil, for saying, oh, you can't sell a supplement. Well, I'm sorry. Whole Foods, Walmart, Walgreens, they all sell supplements. We're the criminals.
And I have to jump in there for a second because I've had some of your dad's supplements. And my wife is an IFBB bikini pro, and she's extremely competent in nutrition. And your dad's products, he really does source high grade material. He doesn't buy stuff with fillers. He doesn't buy GMO. And at the end of the day, he really does try to deliver on what he's telling people, because I think he really kind of puts his money where his mouth is.
Well, let me get into myself a little bit, because I want to explain my background. So I grew up as a switcher. I grew up as an editor. I grew up doing customer service. I grew up doing pick and pack fulfillment, doing logistics, all of it. Okay. I learned the whole package. And what I've been doing for the past 5 years is like, I'm a small business person. I'm an employer. I'm a manufacturer. I own a logistics center. So when I come out and talk about politics and talk about war, talk about the things that affect young Americans, it's not just from a perspective of, like a nepotistic rich kid, that's just coming out here to do a show. I work every single hour of every single day, 7 days a week. And that's what I watched my dad do. That's what I do today. The thing that hurts me the most is when people come out and they see this false corporate image that's been raised up against us, this like graven image of what we are, which we are not. And we were never allowed to defend ourselves, man. You were talking about the ban. We were banned in 2018. Like you're talking about not being able to find me on the internet. That's not fair. I wasn't given the opportunity to compete. My dad wasn't. We weren't allowed to defend ourselves. And they just tortured us online in the court of public opinion for doing the things that really every American with a small business or with a media company should be doing, in my opinion.
And when you have a weaponized judiciary, of course, they're supposed to leave the bias at the door. It's not supposed to be political bias or personal bias. But that doesn't happen. There's a saying I kind of adhere to, and let me preface this. There's definitely some good prosecutors, even at the DOJ. There's definitely some good judges across the nation at the federal and the state level. But there is a tremendous amount of them that are so weaponized. I always say you can't trust a man in a dress.
That's fine.
Yeah, and at the end, and in the situation, the way they railroaded you guys when it came to the court process, you're supposed to have the right to face your accusers. You're supposed to have the right to present evidence. And when judges quash that, for me, it's more than just the Department of Injustice, or it's more than just a weaponization, because I believe that at that point they violated their oath. And I've got a real problem, Rex, and I don't know. I'm sure you and your dad. And I'll throw it to George. He probably knows exactly what I'm going to say, because I say it more often than maybe I should. I'm absolutely disgusted with absolute immunity and lifetime appointments, because I think it creates an ineffective employee. Imagine if the people at Infowars all had lifetime, appointment. The people in the warehouse and people working for you, right? I mean, and that's the problem. No other business can you go into where you get the job for life, even if you do a shitty job. And when a judge, doesn't uphold the Constitution, and he decides to go use the court of public opinion for his own opinion and uses the system to weaponize it, that's malfeasance, misfeasance, nonfeasance by a government official. And it's a violation of like Title 18, 241, 242, obstruction of justice, and so many other things. It fucking pisses me off. I gotta be honest. It makes me really angry I think that everybody has the right to a fair and unbiased, equal application of the law, equal truth of the law. George, you go ahead. I know you knew
Absolute immunity
by heart.
Well, that's a reason why they get away and do what they do, because they got absolute immunity. It's something that shouldn't be allowed. I mean, you have it from what? Judges, cops. I was just watching a video today, and the cop's like, I got absolute immunity. This is when he pulled somebody over. It's like, so that gives them like that mentality that they're bigger or better than anyone, get away with anything. And that's why we're at where we're at today with this system. I mean, all these judges making all these radical decisions, they should be fired, getting off the bench.
Think about this. The judge in the Austin case walked the red carpet at South by Southwest for the HBO documentary that was filmed in her courtroom against us. Okay. The HBO people put makeup on her and made her pretty for the production. We were ruled guilty by default. They requested evidence that never existed. They said, we want to see your advertising campaigns based off the Sandy Hook news. We never did that shit. That's completely insane. I grew up in that office. It's completely decentralized. Everyone just kind of automatically does their jobs. There's no marketing meeting. There's no campaigning, certainly not off a mass casualty event or what we were talking about. And I want to make this very clear to people. You can go into Google Trends and you can look up Alex Jones 9/11 and then Alex Jones Sandy Hook. With Alex Jones 9/11, you're going to see a completely organic, spiking, ebbing, flowing over time. That's one of his main subjects, something he talks about a lot. He's a 9/11 truther, as am I. When you look at the Sandy Hook line, you see 2012, dude, because everyone's talking about on the internet, we're covering alongside everybody else. 2015 to 2018, the period in which they cite us making $280 million or however much money it was off the backs of the dead children. Not a single blip on the line. You're not going to see it. It's only after Hillary Clinton is defeated in 2017 and they do an autopsy on the Clinton campaign. It's determined that my father, Alex Jones, is low-hanging fruit. That's when 10,000 articles come out. 2018 lawsuits start, 30,000 articles come out. You can watch it. It's the most inorganic pile of horse manure you've ever seen. And all it takes is going into Google Trends and checking the history. What they have is an unbeatable narrative that cannot be questioned. Their children died, so therefore, if you say anything about that, you owe $1 gazillion. Example number one is not even us, it's Remington, okay? They sued Remington into bankruptcy, all right? They got $71 million out of Remington. And when when the families are sitting in the courtroom, and my dad is there being portrayed as the mean, evil man, and they're crying about their kids. They're playing the montage of their life. And the jury is seeing it, getting hateful at my dad. All the people doing that are worth 10 times what we're worth. My dad's never been worth $10 million. They had a financial expert go up on the stage and just out of thin air said he was worth $280 million. Okay, I've overheard all the conversations. I know all the inside baseball. I know what my dad has and hasn't done. My dad has never been a truly rich man. But they go into court, they spread that narrative, and they say, he sold supplements off the backs of the dead children, make him pay $1 billion. I think it's interesting that my father has to pay $1 billion, but Jesse Waters, Sean Hannity, Rachel Maddow, they can go deny genocide on live TV. They can deny war crimes on live TV. They can deny that Iranian children died on live TV, and they're able to totally get away with it because we don't have a justice system. It's a complete and double standard. If you actually cared about quote unquote defamation, it would be punished equally. We also offered these people in settlements. I believe the number estimating here is around $55 million because that's what could have been paid out. They didn't want that. It was about chopping our legs off. It was about taking my dad's platform away. And I didn't think that's how the American legal system worked. I'm so passionate about this. Sorry for getting a little excited, but it needs to spring for me because you need to know what happened here and it was wrong.
Get all excited all you want because Lance does all the time. Don't worry about it. You're good.
It's kind of an ugly hobby of mine. It's difficult because I, for a number of reasons, really entrenched myself into it. Took the paralegal classes. I even took a bar exam, a test bar exam, and passed it the first time around. Not because I want to be an attorney. I didn't have any plan. I just wanted to see if I could pass it. At the end of the day, what I think is intriguing is that when you really do understand the system, and most people don't get into criminal action. They don't even normally get into civil action. But when you look at the legal system and you understand what it's supposed to be versus what we have now, and you see something like what happened to you and your family and your dad, and when you know that, you never look at it the same. Once you learn what the process is supposed to be versus what's being delivered, You realize, we're supposed to get a nice prime rib sandwich with some au jus and, some crispy potatoes on the side. And instead we're getting a big fat shit in a sandwich, with a side of, the middle finger. And, for the regular Americans, they don't recognize that. They think that we have one of the best legal systems in the world. But the way it's set up, it's really set up for failure when they decided to target you. When they've weaponized the media against your dad and Roger Stone and Mike Flynn, even, you look at all these people and what happened to them. George Papadopoulos, all those guys are friends of ours, all of them been on the show. It's difficult when you know the truth, because I see it. I know how the media ramps up. We know that money gets funneled through the NGOs and the foundations and super PACs and Open Society and the Daily Beast and WAPO and all the rest of them. And it's, it's that kind of thing. If you remember that montage of clips of news channels, it's a threat to our democracy.
Yes.
Oh no, it's a threat to our democracy. You can't allow that because it's a threat. And you go through, and they always like to use democracy when really we're a constitutional republic.
Yes.
And people get that convoluted. But in your dad's case, of course, because he's got, first of all, an uncanny amount of accuracy, number one. Number two, he's got a very loyal following. He's got that Rush Limbaugh, momentum in all the best ways, is the way I feel about him. And he's such an innovator. And sure, he's made money doing what he's doing it, but he should make money for doing what he's doing.
Yes. No, I'm sorry to interrupt.
It's evil that he made money. Like, he's a bad guy. He made some money.
Yeah. The thing is like, he really made dirt compared to what he could have made if it had been a Glenn Beck mission, to get some giant Utah ranch or whatever. Yeah. Every single dime of profit was either spent on an ad, a billboard, a blimp, an airplane. I mean, we had a $10 million surplus, I think, in like 2014 or 2015. They spent all of that on advertising and marketing. He didn't pocket any of it. And there's stuff like that you do because you care about the message and you want more people to hear it, rather than just ingratiating yourself with your own finances. And that's the type of guy that I've always known my father to be. He's always been that guy.
And it's obvious because he's so emotionally connected. You see it. They say authenticity and consistency are the two failures of shows, right? You have to be consistent. You have to be authentic. You're not a bullshitter. You present yourself regardless of where you sit on your political beliefs or where you sit on the intellectual scale. Being authentic, right? Not being a paid operative. And your dad never became a paid operative. He was trying to get paid, which he should get paid. He should be able to sell supplements. He should be able to sell products. He should be able to brand himself and benefit from that, because the amount of time he invested, as we were talking backstage, I mean, I want to say it for the audience, Alex Jones started when he was 18 or 19 years old, and he's never stopped. You have to think about that commitment, the lifetime of commitment in a craft. Doesn't matter what your craft is. Doesn't matter if you're a stonemason or you're an engineer or you're a plumber. If you've been at it for that long, you should be making money. There's no doubt. And you deserve to make money, because that's that kind of trade craft. And this is a trade craft. When we first started, I can't tell you how many things we fucked up. There were so many things I made mistakes on and overspent on equipment that's sitting over on a big console here that I'm looking at right now. And the things that we, when it came to editing or post-production or the quality of what we were delivering, or it doesn't matter. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And he's gone through that, and you can see the skill that's been honed. But, look, when the system gets weaponized on you, when they decide to target you, it's difficult because they've got a money machine. USAID funneled out so much money. And you see it online with influencers like Bill Kristol. I could never figure out how that dickhead could be so negative. But I know now, because he was getting $8 million a year. So he would just hire somebody to probably sit and type away at the keyboard and say, "I'll just talk shit about Trump." But those controlled narratives, like it's a threat to our democracy, once that's rolled out, whoever that is, call it the deep state, call it the powers that be, once they roll it out and that trickles down, you see the momentum and the anger and push. And they doubled down with your dad. They probably did times 50 what they normally do, because they realized that the information he was putting out was so accurate, and they never want to be discovered, right? We've had, I'm sure your dad's had Alex Gage on, the architect, when it comes to 9/11, very accurate material. And I understand about demolition when it comes to explosives on structures. Clearly, there's a lot of questions about 9/11, but will any president ever have the balls to just open it up and say, "This is really what happened, guys. It was total crap"?
We'll get that information like how many years after we got the JFK assassination information?
After everybody's dead.
We'll all be dead.
Yeah, just like with the COVID shots, and they're 98 years and we'll release the safety data, right? You can trust us. We know what's best for you. Y'all are talking about loyalty, or y'all were talking about loyalty before.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Donald Trump, okay? Because I was the person that got my dad to initially support Donald Trump. I was at Schlitterbahn. I was like 14 years old. We're watching the first Republican primary debate. I point to the TV, not even before he had said anything. And I said, that guy's going to be president. My dad said, you're a retard. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I just recognize it. I kept on hounding him, nagging him, saying, hey, Trump's going to win. Jeb don't got it. Trump's going to win. Rubio don't got it. Trump's going to win. Carson don't got it. Trump's going to win. Kasich don't got it. And I called it, and I eventually was able to sway him. It's on video. I've retweeted it. You can go find it on my page. He credited me in his Trump interview with swaying him towards Donald. So in my way, like being around this all since I've been since before I can remember, I can't help but feel responsible for what we're dealing with right now. I supported Trump ardently. Okay. I'm not a 3-time Trump voter, but I would have been if I was old enough to be. Okay. I voted for him in 2020, in 2024. This was my hero. This was my guy. I truly believe that he was anti-war and pro-human. I believe just as a rich man, he's like, hey, why can't we do deals? My favorite quote from him always will be the 60 Minutes interview where they're going, you said you wanted to work with Kim and Putin. Putin's a killer, sir. Putin's a killer. And Trump goes, you think we're so innocent? And that's so beautiful, right? Because we needed a guy to say that. We need a guy to say, hey, we don't actually have this moral high ground. We've ceded it over, the past few wars that we've done and all the innocent people that we've killed, to be quite honest with you, right? And all those people we've killed with our sanctions as well, 38 million, according to Brown University. So when you look at it from that perspective, we saw Trump as a guy that was going to go in there and be a true wrecking ball into the system and to expose it for what it was. We didn't realize that he wasn't trying to expose it. He was just trying to talk about what he actually wanted to do. And my dad gave this example. This isn't me giving the example. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. My dad compared himself to a hooker and Trump to a pimp. And the hooker loyally serves the pimp because the hooker thinks that the pimp is in love with her. One day, the pimp decides to break her jaw, pump a few rounds in her, and throw her in the river. That's what happened to us, basically. I mean, I pulled the cross out of my shirt the day that the assassination attempt happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And I told hundreds of thousands of people listening to me on Infowars to vote for Trump, because I genuinely believed they were trying to kill him because he wanted to stop the Ukraine war. That's what I believed. And I just feel like I've been totally duped. I think my dad feels that way as well now that the Iran war is fully kicked off. Whatever you want to say, whatever your red line is, for me, it was no more murder. I don't want to have to pay for any more killing. I'm tired of it. And I'm allowed to say that as a young American. And I'm not a veteran. I'm a total civilian. I'm a pacifist 100%. But I pay into this system, so I contribute to it. And that gives me a right to talk about it. And I think my dad also has that view. And when Trump turns around and says, Tucker, Candace, Megan, Alex, you're not MAGA, I'm MAGA. Now they against the data center. I watch this on Fox News. That makes you a Democrat. So guess what? If the narrative is, oh, we got to back the dear leader because the Democrats are so much worse, you're convincing people to become Democrats right now. They're losing the election for themselves because they don't care. It's smash and grab. It's bank robbery. They don't care about the people whining in the bank. They're taking the money. That's what all this is.
Yeah, because we know they can't take the gold out of Fort Knox because it's probably already gone.
I mean, when you talked about the Butler shooting, and you look, okay, you have pick Trump or pick Kamala.
Yeah.
Wasn't that hard of a choice, really, but.
Yeah. No, but at the end of the day, you're right. I mean, look, yeah, we had Cash Patel on the show. We thought government gangsters. We thought that was going to be the playbook. I believed it. I mean, I was convinced that they were going to go locking and knocking, dying and rocking, and just snatching and grabbing people that were part of the deep state, the congressional members and because I remember those comments about, we've got it all. We've got it all. If they have it all, then why is it taking so long? Now, George is confident that something's going to come out of the Florida case. Will it? I don't freaking know. The problem I have is when it comes to the FBI and the alphabet agencies and the judiciary, I don't have a high level of confidence because when you don't eat your own, when you have judges and you have prosecutors and you have federal agents that have committed multiple crimes, enough crimes that if we did it, we'd be sitting in jail with a 10 to 20 stretch at one of the maxes, because of course you'd start at one of the USPs at that kind of a level, and then you'd move your way down to a medium. And after 10 years, if you were a good guy, you might have got your way to a camp. But the truth is, that's not how they're operating. I don't see any, the FBI agents, doesn't matter when we talk about J6, doesn't matter when we talk about any of this stuff, the raid on Donald Trump's. There's always a retaliation for things that happen to Trump, right? It's either a lawsuit or he wins a settlement. And George has pointed out that he puts the settlement, he doesn't get the money. I don't know what happens there. The fact is he sues, but there's nothing for the American people. I think this fund right now, I hope it's about the J6ers, the 1.7
It's not only about J6ers, Lance. It's about anybody who's got.
Well, I hope like Roger Stone gets made whole. I think he deserves to get made whole.
He's got to put something in. He's got to, somebody already started to put their, I forget his name, already put it in the process.
And there's people out there doing it, but there's all of us, you got taken off of social media, even though it's hard to tie the equity side of the legal system to say, how much was Rex Jones damaged? Can we put a number on it? We got suspended like a mofo. They threw us off of everything because we were talking about election integrity. I was all over the Italy Gate story because I had Italian Secret Service that I'd gotten connected with, and they told me all about, the MI6 passports, and I had pictures from the consulate and all kinds of stuff where these guys flew in on these, and I was on the verge of getting the passports. Probably they knew it because I was talking to people, on and using text messaging and DMs and stuff. And I'm sure that was part of it. And then, of course, over COVID, and George got suspended and we got thrown off of all kinds of stuff. But how do I prove financial impact? How do I prove that if I hadn't gotten thrown off, our show would have been bigger, our social media would have been bigger, we would have been making more money? You can't prove it, right? Even the suppression now that's on X, even the current accounts we have, you can see the suppression because we've got a nationally syndicated radio show. We have this show and the crypto show, and you see us online. We're on all the time. Our stuff should be growing like crazy, but we're at a negative growth rate really on X. We don't get that momentum. Our posts don't go viral. So there is suppression. And when you ask Grok, and early on, you could ask Grok questions, but that suppression does damage you. And forget the personal attacks. I mean, I've got all kinds of death messages. I hope you fucking die.
And this bit.
Yeah. So, where's the relief? I see Donald Trump gets a settlement from 60 Minutes. Where's the 60 Minutes settlement for the American people?
Well, we got to put a class action suit in. But even so, let's talk about that real quick, Lance. We all put a class action suit in. You know who's going to make out? The lawyers. Because there'd be so many people in it. You get like $5 while the lawyers get all the money. They'll make out. But we can do it.
Brand new $5 bill.
We can start a lawsuit against 60 Minutes if you want. Somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like you said. All right. So I want to bring up because Iran war too. I don't like being in wars. I don't like any wars. But when they went after Iran the first time, they should have just finished them off. Got rid of the regime. This time around, he came out, fired him. He should have never done a ceasefire. Should have just finished them off because now he just gave them time to get all their missiles up, and more drones, and regroup themselves. I think he's pussyfooting around. They destabilize that region. They fund so many different proxy wars. They fund Hezbollah, all the terrorist groups, the Houthis. You get rid of that. You get rid of them and that funding. That will help stabilize that region. Because look what just this war did. You have Saudi Arabia, UAE, even Turkey going against Iran because Iran fired on everybody. They effed up big time. They just want to get it done and over with.
How do you deal with missile cities and drone factories that are buried inside mountains of granite? We don't have the munitions. We don't have enough missiles to do this. According to the CNN figures, our missile interceptors that we spent defending is over 55%. I don't believe that. I believe Larry Johnson's figure of well over 90 due to his counting and his estimates. It's a thing as to where you have the 12-day war and you have this perfect out for him, where he drops the bombs and he leaves, right? And he declares the nuclear material has been completely obliterated, right? Then we got into this conflict, as Marco Rubio states, literally on day 1 or day 2, well, Israel's going to do this strike. We fear American soldiers are going to die in the retaliation. We got to join to make sure it's overwhelming. We knock out the regime. The initial talking point, and I remember this because I don't have the memory of a goldfish, was 24 to 48 hours. That is what they told us. We are now months into it. The conflict is paused. It is not over. It's about to resume. Trump says it's about to resume. They're all open about it. And there's no end in sight for the American people, for the American public. You were talking about a class action lawsuit or a redress of grievances or a settlement for Americans. Think about the $10 trillion that we spent on all these wars. You can't tell me that we couldn't have taken 1/10 of that and spent it at home. We never made that decision. We never veterans, never helped our home.
Look at the waste. The waste is incredible. And look what Doge started to disclose. And I think that When you looked at, Elon Musk quadruple his security, it was because of the death threats, and he started to get concerned, and that's when he bought that penthouse and down there across from Mar-a-Lago. And you're right. Look at the end of the day. The war is messy. You never really can call it when you underestimate. And you're right about the granite. The only technique that could have been used, assuming that they had enough munitions to do it, and I'm not telling you they do. Our military stockpiles, when you look at depletion, you look at even what they gave to Ukraine, you look at what we left behind in Afghanistan, you look at the slop and waste. I mean, if we ran our businesses like that, if your dad ran that show like that, he would have been sitting on a cardboard box talking into a little micro recorder. And
that's something much deeper. I'm sorry to come in. I got to interrupt. That's something much deeper. They spend the most to get the most mediocre product. And that's what we do, whether it's healthcare, whether it's military. Think about this. The stated objective for the Ukraine war and us backing Ukraine against Russia was that it was going to degrade Russia's military. Russia's industrial capacity is better than it's ever been when it comes to producing munitions. Their economy has struggled and suffered quite a bit, but that doesn't mean they're not out of the fight. We're the ones that can't take any pain. It's like the rich kid fighting the homeless person. Like the homeless person's willing to break an arm, break a leg, break some teeth, do anything to win the fight. But if you scratch us, we're going to run home and cry to mommy. And we have a very low threshold for casualties, casualties that the American people will tolerate. And when you think about it, 14 Americans dead in this conflict so far, I'm amazed that there wasn't more of a public outcry against it. Okay. Because you look at it, Pete Hegseth came out and talked about that base where they left the people. We have air defense. It's fine. They got the reports of people being like, there's nothing here to defend us. There's no safety. We're out here in the cold. Everybody's expendable, you see. And that shouldn't be our foreign policy of being like, hey, let's roll the dice.
Military
at this point with Iran, after Trump and other U.S. officials told the people, go protest, we're going to save you, this and that. There's no way that they can leave this regime in. If they make a deal with this regime and they stay in place, a lot of those people are going to face a lot of consequences. May not be today, tomorrow, but that regime will not forget that stuff, and there'll be a lot of deaths.
Here's the thing.
And the only way, really, to get rid of that regime, unfortunately, and I said this a while ago, and I hate to say it, but there'd have to be boots on the ground to finish them off. Can't just do it with missiles.
There's no doubt. There's two things I want to comment on. First of all, the military-industrial complex and their influence on Congress. You're right about the overcharging, because we've seen some incredible new military innovators. A lot of them are online on X. You can see them talking about it. And what they've been able to do with just duplicating drones as an example, because drone technology is really taken off. And you look at the cost of the drones that are coming out of these independent groups, and then you look at what Halliburton, United Defense, all the big ones. And you look at how much money they spend on lobbying so that they can charge us, $40,000 for a toilet seat. We covered a story on the show the other day about a radio knob that was grounding Blackhawks because this radio that was in there, when you get the radio and the knob breaks, which you could print it on a 3D printer for about $6, they sell them a whole radio. And then they take the radio they pulled out, they stick the $6 knob on it, and then they use that as a refurbished radio to replace the next $40,000 radio. It's this cycle of abuse and these groups taking advantage. Because, again, there's no consequences. If I was Pete Hegseth and somebody charged me $40,000 to replace a knob on a radio, and they're saying it needs to be a certified radio swap, I would literally drag the guy across the desk and beat the brakes off of him. I'd say, now the next time you try to overcharge me, just remember this beating I just gave you, because I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you 10 times the beating. Start charging fairly, or I'm just going to fuck you off. You'll never do business with this government again. And they don't do that. There isn't any, you get away with something. We always talk about on this show, our comparison is the bartender just steals that first drink. He steals a drink one night, you don't catch him as the bar owner, and then he steals 2 drinks, 3 drinks, and by the end of the month, you're paying his rent. It's not just one drink. It's not just a couple of bucks. If you don't have consequences for actions, that's what emboldens people, right? And when somebody has total immunity and impunity, I don't care whether it's the DOJ, a government contractor, a federal judge, you're just enabling them to be scumbags, because, let's face it, ultimate greed and power corrupts, right? And for what's going on here, when I look at, I think the Iran war, first of all, I do think that the destabilization by Iran is a major problem, but too many times we've gone in there and slapped them around. And you can't really, when you really look evil in the eye, and you look at a regime like Iran, and you look at the way the Ayatollah operates against its own people, and you look at violent regimes, I don't care whether you're in Northern Africa or the Middle East or wherever there's violent regimes, and you go in and you give them a slapping. You go and drop a couple bombs and you run out, like you said. I don't think you can do that. I'm a different guy. If I tell you I'm going to pull you into the circle of death, first of all, I've never started a bar fight in my life. But I was always the guy that would finish a bar fight because I was highly skilled. I'd always been in combat sports my whole life. So I do have a violent, a propensity for high-speed violence kind of ingrained into me. And my thing is, if you're going to get to the point where I try to tell you, hey, this is a bad idea, let's not do this, and you decide you're going to come over, I'm not going to stop till it's finished. I'm not the guy that gives you a couple of shots and waits. I'm going to wait till it's over with, 100%. And for me, when you're in a military kinetic event, when you're under fire, or you've decided that you've got a problem, I don't think you can go one toe in the water. I think if you're as a president or any other leader, and I'm not a warmonger. I believe if it was up to me and I was the president of the United States, I would go sit down with the China and Russia, and I would have a discussion. I said, we're wasting a tremendous amount of money. We could be doing a lot better good for our people. There ought to be a way we can align and do better for everybody. We don't need to be this constant sneaky.
I voted for no new wars. That's what I voted for. And the thing that I don't understand is, like, sure, Iran, theocracy, Ayatollah runs around with the club, bonks women on the head. I don't like that. Netanyahu and the current modern state of Israel, they're responsible for genocides. Okay, if you
absolutely,
100%, we agree with you on that.
I can't stand Netanyahu, and I hate what Israel does as a whole.
Well, and
but again, we've enabled that. I think when you get we've allowed them to integrate into our public policy and our government and our media, and they're so very good at it. I spent some time around some Mossad guys years ago, and the thing about a Mossad guy, if this was me calling it, and you're on an operation, they're highly skilled, right? These guys are very, very good at what they do. But everything they do is all about Israel. They're completely committed to Israel. You don't necessarily want that guy sitting behind you with a gun if you're opposing Israel in any way. If you're moving forward on a team, you wouldn't want him behind you. He's not the guy I want backing me up. My point is, you're right. I mean, but that's that's again, when you allow your media to be taken over, right? And they can, they can go, if tomorrow your dad came out and he had massive amounts of angry Israeli rhetoric, right? If he just came out really, they would immediately bring the whole system to bear on him, right? That's what happens. And because the majority of the public isn't as educated as you and your family, isn't as educated as George, where George is, online from dusk to dawn, just like me. We're always looking for the next story, the next piece, because we don't like to put out pre-recorded shows where we're covering something from a week ago. We're looking for stuff.
Live is the way to do a show.
So that's the way we think. But you're right, man. I mean, it's an ugly deal. It's kind of like Trump stepping into North Korea, right? It's ridiculous that we have to have a situation where our presidents were sitting with binoculars to look into North Korea. I would walk right in and I'd be like, yeah, man, let's just sit down and talk. The same thing with Putin. Listen, Putin wants to make Russia great, right? That's what his job is. He's supposed to be loyal to Russia, and anybody that opposes that, he's supposed to. But when I look at what could be done, when I look at the power of probably the three most powerful countries, right? I mean, when you look at Russia and China, because of our populations and the investment in military complex, and I'm not saying that Israel doesn't have its own power base for a small location. You think about what could be done, and I agree with you. I think we could put it to an end, because let's face it, if those three leaders were aligned, right, in a way that was positive for the people, that you could stop anything that had to do with going after any of the people, to tell the Russians, let's not do this, but let's do this. Can you imagine you just tell Israel, hey, you got to cut out the bullshit, or we're going to come in and squash you like an insect on our shoe?
I agree. Things are getting so bad for the youth. You have to understand, I'm graduating class of 2020, right? So for me, I never got a chance. I know tons of people that are dead now from drug ODs or violent situations because they couldn't figure 2020 to 2023 out. Okay, called failure to launch, right? There are a lot of people like that I know. And we're kind of told by the older population that, hey, all the presidents are bad. It's kind of a lesser of two evil situation. You got to work it out. When somebody promises you something like the Epstein files, or like no new wars, when they break the promise, you have to kind of say, well, I guess that's the system. I think it's been that way because we had a dollar menu in the country for a very long time. And the purchasing power of the dollar actually meant something. The problem is, we talked about here today, we talked about Israel, America, all these other nations. The problem that the U.S.-Israeli empire has is that it thinks it has the right and the infinite ability to write a blank check, right? That's why Heg said, about the cost of things. We covered something on the show. My co-host on Gray Area Talks, Tim Tompkins, he's a mechanical engineer. He's worked on like Black Hawk helicopters and all sorts of serious stuff. He covered like I'm not a military guy, so like a shoulder-fired missile, like one of these platforms. It went up 15x in price over 5 years.
Yeah, that's correct.
So like that's the real thing is like the American government and like the empire just in general doesn't feel accountable to its tax base because it doesn't actually use the tax base. The taxes are control. It just prints the money anyway and devalues the currency, and you can't play that game forever. So we're actually looking now at this war, not just as a war of the past like Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, not just as a situation like that where we can recover from it. There isn't going to be a recovery from this in the traditional sense. It's going to take years and years and years. And we're only now just beginning to see the ramifications of the Strait of Hormuz being shut down. Okay. It's going to take 6 months to fully reopen that. If the war restarts, if the Iranians hit the shared oil field, I forget where it is. It's either, I think it's Qatar where they have that shared spot together and they blew up 2 out of 17 of the trains before. If they shut out the Bab el-Mandeb, if the Houthis get involved, like you were talking about earlier, George, like we're screwed. So we're already dealing with recession, a new COVID event. People like me that are young are being told, sucks to suck is what it is. We got to go to war. I got to buy a house. I got to have kids. I got to have a job. Where the hell am I supposed to get those things? You know, I'm supposed to go sign up for a military draft. You know, Ed Gallerin, he just beat Thomas Massey. He's a supporter of apocalypse theology and the draft. All right. So I got a news flash. Okay. I know this is a military podcast. Like I respect and honor veterans. A lot of y'all protected me over the years, done security for me over the years. I'm going to Mexico and I'm hanging out with the Latinas. That's what I'm doing. I'm not going to go die in Iran. All right. I proudly say openly, Pete Hegseth, come and get me. All right. Come and take it. Come and take my life. I'm going to go move to Mexico because I'm not going to be a part of this anymore. And I understand the honor of defending the country. I understand why we have to have the military, but the military is a tool like this. It could be used to light a joint or it could be used to burn a house down, right? So it's not the military's fault when they're pushed to do any of these things. It's our corrupt, lily-livered government. And I know I would never put myself in the position of being commander-in-chief because I wouldn't want to be responsible as a civilian for military men going off and dying in a war that I don't understand. I think Donald Trump is completely divorced from that concept. And I think you guys understand the reality of that much better than I do.
Yeah, you know, in our audience, you know, it's a highly educated audience when you look at the demographics of it. And it's a struggle. Right? Because on one hand, we want to believe that there's a reason that everything happens, right? You want to believe that the Iran war is for a reason. I have my own beliefs of Iran, you know, having spent time in the Middle East and spending around time in Northern Africa. And, you know, seeing that the terrorism up close, seeing operations. I was a government contractor. I was never in the military, but I came in a different way. Skill set in you know, mixed martial arts and boxing and fighting and knife fighting. And I was in a gun culture. I mean, I got my first gun when I think I was 8 years old. 8 or 9. It was a Ruger 1022 rifle was the first gun I ever owned. So my dad had always been a gun guy. But at the end of the day, I always feel like when it comes to that choice, when it comes to kinetic or violence, I think you have to try every other means, right? Every other time when I talk about a fight, you got to try to talk your way out of it first in a manner that's respectful and, of course, protect yourself and who's with you. But that's the point, right? They don't really see it like that. When you've got a military industrial complex, it's so ingrained into the decision makers. I've always thought that lobbying should be outlawed, that NGOs, foundations, super PACs, because let's face it, it's ridiculous. That primary in Texas, it cost for that primary that you just mentioned. He spent $32 million for a primary.
What, Texas?
Yeah.
Forget about that. Look at what they spent the most money in with Massey in that race.
No, that's it. That's the one. 32
you said Texas. That's
Kentucky.
I'm sorry.
I didn't say Texas. Yeah. $32 million.
Right.
$32 million. I mean, I don't think the founders and framers ever believed that we were going to have to spend that kind of money because it was supposed to be a part-time job. It wasn't supposed to be a full-time career. You were supposed to go to Washington, D.C., you know, the Continental Congress. You were supposed to do your thing, and then you were supposed to roll home to your tobacco farm or your ranches or your steel complexes, and you were supposed to go work your regular gig, right? Because it was just to do a good thing for the country. That was the commitment. You know, when Johnson came out and said he was complaining about the 174,000, I wanted to slap the taste out of his mouth. Because when I look at that, I listen to that bullshit. You're such a fucking liar. You're not talking about all the other expenses. You get per diem for, you know, residential, and you get this, and you get
stock market. They can bet on the stock market. They can bet in
insider. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. Yeah.
It's a total we had this. I was in a Spaces, right, and they had some guy in there who was like a member of the Trump administration in 2024, like working with them or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm up here talking to JD, having the real conversations, talking to JD, and it's like, you realize you work in a clown college, right? It might as well be like a dog washing facility.
Say clown college?
Of intelligence.
Hold on.
We got to do a little making it rain.
Yeah. Exactly. But that's the reality, guys. And that's not a serious political system. A serious political system would actually allow people to compete. And like you say, $32 million, record-breaking spending in that primary. I watched a Fox News clip where they're propagandizing people, and they have Ed Gowron on, and they're displaying the number of individual small dollar donations, and Massey got more of those, of course, and Ed Gowron got the black money. And then underneath, they have the total amount of money received, and they go, Ed, you've received way less money than Massey. He's being propped up by the left, isn't he? And Ed goes, that's right. And when they're lying to their audience, people, they're lying to you.
Well, and I've said it many times, George and I talk about it all the time, that I truly believe that if we've got laws on the books that we're supposed to, like when we have a sponsor, you heard us say, hey, this is a sponsored Genesis Gold Group. They sponsor the show. We appreciate the sponsor, and you don't see that whether you're on social media, but you specifically don't see it in Congress. And I think if they're going to be in the halls of Congress, and we know that they've got even the ability to lie, which is awful on the speech and debate clause. We know that they have that ability, and people don't recognize that. They can get right up there and tell somebody right on camera a total freaking lie because of the speech and debate clause. They're protected. But my point is, I think they should wear NASCAR jackets. I think they're big.
You read my mind.
Should get swapped out. Yeah, and I think this.
Yes.
I think they should have to go. And by the way, I'm sponsored by Halliburton, Wackenhut. I've also gotten money from Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson. All right, listen, guys, I want to tell you, you got to get out and take the shot. I think they should have to disclose prior because of the FCC rules, right? Because your dad has to disclose. We have to disclose. Why the fuck don't they have to disclose? The laws are there.
No,
if
it
they
should
got
be
money,
It should be like 2000s UFC where they all wear the trunks and they got.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I don't want to see Mitch McConnell in trunks though.
He's gone anyway.
I definitely don't want to see.
He can barely stand.
Pelosi.
What are you talking about?
I don't want to see Nancy Pelosi in like a bodysuit or something. It would probably kill me. I don't think I
can get patches all over the suit like they're poker players or NASCAR drivers. That's what we need to see because that's real accountability and honesty. And I will say, for everything that I've come out against Trump, I do appreciate him exposing the political system for being a complete clown show. I do appreciate that because we had a guy go in there who wasn't a politician who became the ultimate politician. And if that ain't proof that the power corrupts absolutely, I don't know what is.
I wish Trump could do more, but there's only so much a president can do. A lot of it all falls on Congress to do a lot of stuff. I mean, granted, one of the things where Trump, hold on, Lance. One of the things where Trump has failed is every AG he has picked has been a flop, have done nothing. I mean, Todd Blanche is the acting AG. He kind of made a little name for himself, a little bit small. He wants a job, but I mean, it's crazy. I don't know how you feel about this one. I don't like Susan Wiles. I think she's a big issue with holding a lot of stuff back. That's just what I think.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. But historically, that's the difficult part, right? That the positions in the cabinet, the positions in the administration, high-ranking positions, there's so much political maneuvering. There's so much payola. If you want to get an ambassadorship, it doesn't matter. Every president for the last, 10 decades has sold those ambassadorships in one way or another. And that's always the tricky part. The money that, hey, let's give Gafola, give her the, give her the Greek ambassadorship to keep her quiet on what she knows about Donald Trump Jr. I don't know. This is one of those systems. I don't know how we fix it. I struggle with it every single day. Because I hope that, there's going to be somebody in there that's going to go clean house, but I don't see any swamp draining. I think we've filled it up some more, maybe.
Well, the thing is like we talk about Trump and trying to find compromises, whatever. Mark Levin, Lindsey Graham, Ben Shapiro, are those our people? Like seriously, is Lindsey Graham the never Trumper? Lindsey Graham ran against Trump.
George hates Lindsey Graham.
So here's it. Okay, you know what? You brought up a great thing. So here's the thing, and I put this post out on X. You see that Lauren Boebert endorsed Massey. Okay, she's allowed to if she wants. Anybody can do what they want. Now you have the fucking social media hit squads going after her, the paid influencers going after her. But I don't see those paid influencers saying shit when Trump endorsed Lindsey Graham. When Lindsey Graham blatantly screwed Trump over multiple times. But they're okay with that. You know what? I call them political fucking prostitutes. They suck dick for that money, the post.
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it is.
All that. I mean, here's the thing. I saw AI ads of Thomas Massey with people he's never been with Ilhan Omar, with AOC, running that on Fox News and other channels 24/7. How is that not beyond defamation? How is that not, defrauding the American public? We have to ask questions like this. And the people that are so interested in like tearing down Thomas Massey, it's like you say, they're not ideologically consistent. What we talk about here, we may disagree on different perspectives, but I can tell by talking to you guys that you have a worldview and an epistemic justification as to what you believe. These people don't have that. It is literally all value judgment based on either money, engagement, or, access journalism. I think this is a huge problem, within the new Trump administration is, during the first Trump administration, there was really no media presence, no new media presence. It was the establishment and is what it is. They destroyed Trump in the media.
He was fighting a Russian hoax for 4 years. I always think he should get a do-over for that, by the way. But
let's think about that for a second with the Russia hoax. So how do you break a horse? You make the horse go around and around and around in a circle until it's not mad enough to buck someone off once they get on its back, right? And then you can put the blinders on, do whatever you want to do. That's what they did with Trump and Russia. Because if you think about it, and this is my perspective, Russia should be our greatest natural ally. We don't have a historical beef with those people. They have rare earth minerals. They have the icebreaker fleet. They want to develop the Arctic with us. They tried to join NATO twice. And there has been this narrative post-Cold War, I think George Bush said this, that we won the Cold War. And if that was our attitude, we're doomed to fail. It's kind of like, in Lord of the Rings where the guy goes mad once he gets all the gold. Like, what do you do when you have everything? What do you do when you say, you're so powerful, I don't need to cooperate. I don't need your help. You get sanctioned. You obey. You do whatever. We haven't tried cooperation once. And that was the thing I was hoping for the most with Trump, because that's what he was signaling. He was signaling negotiation. He was signaling diplomacy, all these things. I don't get how we get to just this bizarro world, man, without the influence of a foreign power over our own government. That's what I believe.
And you're right, because, and that's what, I was trying to really convey earlier. If we aligned in a good way, if we, brought that kind of power to bear, you could just shut down everything, right? You wouldn't have these, you wouldn't have these groups killing Christians in Northern Africa. You wouldn't have any of these events around the country. And you could literally just say, hey, by the way, we're going to come over there and step on you if you don't stop right now. The point is, there's just the money is what drives it forward, because of course that isn't what we see. We don't really know what the dialogue is between Putin or Xi Jinping with Donald Trump. We don't know what really was conveyed there. We know what the media told us, but it's a frustrating thing, because I thought the same thing. I'll be honest with you. I thought Donald Trump was going to go ahead and get things smooth with Russia, and then I thought he would go over with Putin to China and go like, look, man, we got to stop this stuff. We're spending trillions of dollars on weapons. We don't have to hate each other. Why don't we just figure out how we can work together?
I do not trust the Chinese. I do not trust President Xi at all. Vladimir Putin came over to our country and we flew a B-2 bomber over his head. You cannot tell me he's not willing to negotiate. Like that. That's the Russian thing is heartbreaking to me, man. 1.5 million dead conservatively on both sides, Russia and Ukraine. Orthodox young men killing Orthodox Christians.
No doubt.
Is a tragedy.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And any time you look at ethnic cleansing, it's an atrocity, right? You think about the reasoning behind it, like why the Muslims, and we heard about it. We had on the Machine Gun Preacher, and he was talking about what's going on in Northern Africa, and that people weren't paying attention, that they were, there was these major amounts of terrorists and extremist Muslims that were going to
still doing it more now. They're ramping that shit up right now.
Well, we covered it like probably before it even got disclosed to the public. In a year, we talked about what was going on in South Africa. What happened to the farmers there, and how these these groups of really terrorists doing what they're doing. And that's the hard part, right? I've never liked bullies. I've always had a problem with bullies, even from an early age. I started boxing at an early age, and I would find myself in altercations because I would see somebody thinking because they were a bigger guy or because of a thing that it was okay to go pick on somebody, whether the kid was nerdy or what. And I would often step in and just kick the shit out of the bullies because I didn't like it. I didn't like somebody using that. And I feel like that's too much of what we've seen here. You know, Trump always talks about how amazing our military is, but it's almost like a bully kind of a thing.
I'll be honest with you. I wasn't real impressed with our military with Iran. What was going on? We had like how are you not ready for to have drone killers? We had to go to, of all people, Ukraine to get their equipment to kill down the drones. It was embarrassing.
The is a defensive war. It is not war. And we have all these platforms, whether it's the aircraft carriers, whether it's the missile platforms, everything we have is vastly expensive and a target. We have all these Patriot and THAAD missile batteries, right? What does it take to properly operate those? It takes those billion-dollar radar systems. What are the first things the Iranians blew up? Okay, so those are gone. The missiles and the missile defense both become ineffective. And then we have these aircraft carriers that we have to keep hundreds of miles off the coast because we're afraid of drone or missile attack. And I don't understand how we get into a position where we say, well, we're going to expand this conflict even further. And like you said, like it would be the only viable way is to put boots on the ground. We don't have the military for that in 2026. We just don't. Anyone saying that, like, even if you are like a conquering warlord, right? And you're Trump and you're like, American empire, we're going to take what's ours. We're going to take them out. We don't like them. From a value-based judgment, after what happened initially, you should realize, hey, it's not worth destroying our entire military. What do we do when Russia and China gang up on us and we have nothing because of Ukraine and Iran?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's no doubt. And I think that when you look at our military and you look at our military readiness and you see some of the videos that are up about the belief systems and you've seen DEI and, you know, those aren't conditioned combatants, right? Even with Biden administration, we saw it massively during that time period. The different individuals that were in leadership positions, you had the pups in leather, all that leather crap that was going on in some of the corrupt institutions. And you can't really have a military like that. They have to be highly conditioned. I mean, look at the food. We're serving our military food that's been sourced out of China. Wow. How do you take one of your major, adversaries and say, okay, by the way, we're going to do this with you guys. We're not going to allow this. We're not going to allow that. And we're going to come after you. But by the way, can you supply the food to our military?
Are you serious? I didn't know this. You're serious right now. We
100%. We covered a show on it. We disclosed all that about
what, the food.
Yeah. We had a show.
That was with Moms from America. What's her name?
Yeah, she has gone through the sourcing, and 80% of the food that's being provided to our active military coming from out of the country, and the majority of that out of the country is coming out of China.
We should just let them smoke crack. It would be safer.
Yeah, well, and there's no doubt, because you would think this. Listen, if you want to, because to be a really military or again, and if you can talk about in the government contracting world, the highest amount of readiness of the guys, and the reason they pick special forces is not only because of their skill levels, it's because these guys are ready for combat, right? They're conditioned. They're guys that work out regularly. The guys that don't initially eat in the mess hall. They take care of themselves. There's a reason, because you want to get something off the shelf that's as ready as possible. In the case of our military, we're not trying to give them, the highest grade of nutrition. We're just putting slop on the table, and we're not thinking about the nutritional readiness of what that does. And I think that's a real national security issue. So yeah, I mean, you didn't know about that, but we'll connect you with her if you want to have any discussion.
Yeah, I would love to.
And she's got all the facts. She's got everything. Like and she's gone to the military and said, "Do you realize that you're sourcing where you're sourcing this material from?" And then they took here's the worst part. They took the MREs and they actually had military individuals sneaking out complete meals from the chow halls, and they had them tested. And you're right. They might as well just be shredding up cardboard boxes and throw some ketchup on top of it, because the nutritional, the nutrients that were in the food were like, George, I don't remember, was it like 80% below even basic needs? It was something crazy. Rex, the numbers were so bad that you're right. They might as well just go out and eat a handful of fucking dirt.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, think about that writ large for the American public too, because what we do to our military, we're also doing to ourselves. Think about the glyphosate. Think about the pesticide in the food. RFK Jr. won a $270 million lawsuit against Monsanto, proving that glyphosate causes non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's also known as being carcinogenic. And if you're carcinogenic in one capacity, you're carcinogenic in all capacities. The big lie that they say, it's only used on 3% of the wheat to dry it. It's not a big deal now. They won't tell you they use on 1/3 of all fields in America. They use it for weed control. So it's in all the food that you're eating already.
Yeah.
RFK Jr. comes out and he goes, it's a matter of national security. We have to have the glyphosate. And I watched him campaign literally for years against. I read The Real Anthony Fauci, where he talks about this stuff and more back in like 2021, 2022. Yeah. So it's like, what are we supposed to do as people that genuinely believed in the platform and know the platform they ran on in 24 was good, looking at 26 and realizing we're living in the opposite of it, guys? We're living in bizarro town here. It's fruit ball world.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And, you know, again, you look at those big groups and how they're treating the food, and you know, the fact that the way it's being processed, and they're killing the microbiome, and then of course, you know, the fact that it's all GMO, right? You know, and they're modifying everything. And we've had some experts come on the show and talk about how the nutrient base, if you take wheat as an example,
I got it. It was Zen Honeycutt, moms across America.
So she's great. She has all the details. They have all the testing profiles and everything else. We looked at the data. Unbelievable. But in general, you're right. They you know, it's funny. Have you ever been to Italy, Rex?
No, I have not.
You know, it's funny. Every time here, you know, and I find myself that you eat any kind of carbohydrates here, you eat pasta. You know, I'm Italian, so I love my pasta. I love my bread. You know, you feel a bloated thing that occurs, right? So you know you're reacting, even when you buy organic, because it's not really truly organic. Even the organic labels aren't completely accurate here, right? Unless maybe you went out and you were sourcing, and then you have to worry about, you know, the crops if you're next door to a facility that's using GMO, and then Monsanto will come out, sorry, Rex, it looks like you've been using our seeds. We own it. I did use your seeds. It cross-pollinated. I didn't do it. I'm telling you, it's too late, Rex. We're going to have to go and charge you for that. But the truth is, the nutrient base, it's tough, because even the food, I don't know if you find this, I feel like the tastes have all changed. I don't know if it's my taste buds. I don't know if I'm older. The stuff tastes like shit. But when I go to Italy, I can eat as much bread and pasta as I want. I don't really gain any weight. I don't get bloated, because they don't have the same issues. If you have cheese in Italy, it tastes like cheese. It's delicious. I mean, they bring a big cheese tray out, and you're lucky if you don't fill up on the cheese. But here, it just doesn't taste any good, because they've modified so much of it for profit. And, you know, they want to inject the chickens so they get these big looking healthy breasts, but it tastes like shit. They want, and they're doing it to us nonstop. And then you've got these idiots like Bill Gates, right? I mean, I don't know what to think about these boxes of ticks that are showing up everywhere. But I know this: if I was in the administration, I would do a full investigation. And if I caught that fucker doing it, if he was responsible, just like he wants to inoculate us through lettuce, right? He wants to do all this stuff, you know, and I've heard that none of his kids are vaccinated. I've heard this over and over again. I don't know if it's true, but I've heard it. The guy went to Epstein Island, arguably or allegedly 25 plus times. If I found out that guy had anything to do with dropping boxes of ticks that are going to try to make us allergic to beef around the country, I can tell you I would take him out on the White House lawn. I would skin him alive in front of the American public. I totally agree with
you. And listen, that we know what the punishment for treason is, and you know, inventing a new disease to weaken the American public is basically that. The thing is they think they have the right and the ability to play God, and they're half right. They do have the ability to play God. They don't have the right to do it, of course. But when you look at a Bill Gates, I mean, we get the most polio from the polio vaccine that he gives out to Africans.
Yeah.
He comes over there and says, hey, I'm going to reduce your population by 15%. I'm sorry, who the hell are you? What gives you the right to do that? And when they come out here, all these people, and they say, humans are bad for the earth, and we must eliminate humans, and we must have less humans, we must have depopulation. They say that, and they're going to build a data center that's going to use 10 times the power of all humans.
Yeah.
So it's hypocrisy writ large. And like, I have to say, that's my political platforms. I'm trying to be against that stuff. And what you're talking about with the ticks, like, this is such a no-brainer, easy win. Like you're talking about, why doesn't Trump just go ahead and declare, hey, national investigation on this? I'm putting Todd Blanche on it. We're putting all the top people, CDC, RFK Jr. We're going to look into it. We're going to figure this out. You're not hearing that because the American people aren't the priority.
Well, when you have David Sachs inviting, first of all, Mark Zuckerberg, $460 million Zuckerbucks, and now all of a sudden you hold that meeting in Washington, D.C., and on one side is Bill Gates sitting with Melania, on the other side is Mark Zuckerberg. You know, that doesn't send a good message, right? Because we heard all the things about them. We knew about Epstein. We knew about the Zuckerbucks. That doesn't send a message. It's not much different than taking, you know, a large group of business people with you when you go to China. I don't think that really sends the right message. But if you're a billionaire in this country, you get a completely different level of status, not forgetting that a billionaire is no different than the average American. It's still a person, is still a citizen of the United States. But for some reason, the minute somebody gets a large amount of money, not for some reason, we know why, they all of a sudden they've got a higher status. I mean, we got rid of titles of nobility. It's not supposed to be legal here.
That's what we have now. That's what we have now.
Exactly. They seem to have a title of nobility, right? All of a sudden, it's Sir Gates of the Gates Foundation. I mean, and they get brought in, even when we know that Gates didn't support Donald Trump, that Mark Zuckerberg didn't. But all of a sudden, now they get, oh, it's okay, Marky, come to the White House, even though you had $460 million worth of Zucker bucks. I don't see that. And even though there's a bunch of human trafficking on your website, we're going to ignore that.
Look at Mark Cuban now kissing Trump's ass.
Yeah, Mark Cuban, one of the most.
He was all for Kamala, Thunderlips Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
you see this? It just came out now this morning.
Yeah. What do you got?
I mean, it's stupid. They just indicted the former Cuban president Raul Castro, who's like 99 years old.
Yeah, we're gonna get our pound. We're gonna get our pound.
That's an excuse for us to go in, though.
Gotta have a win. We hear about the Cubans are getting the drones. Have you ever heard of Operation Northwoods, where we planned a Cuban invasion so that we could go take it over?
Yeah, they were gonna go and kill Americans and all that. It's like it's all the ones. Operation Paperclip.
Sure.
Ocean Sea Spray. When these things get declassified, I'm always shocked that people are like, "What? You were gonna put a bunch of contaminants into the air in San Francisco and see how many people would die from it? You were testing." Just like when you hear about the invasion, from Bay of Pigs, you were going to have Americans dress up as Cubans and kill Americans, but nobody ever makes a big deal. It's kind of like the CIA. I believe the story about them going into Tulsi Gabbard's office is true. I believe they did go in and take files back for whatever reason. I don't know if it was, because now all of a sudden they're cleaning it all. Jesse Waters pulled his video down and it didn't happen. But again, when you find that out, because I guarantee this, if Rex Jones, went out and dumped boxes of ticks that were going to make people allergic to watching CNN, you'd be locked up. You'd be the Supermax right down here with 23 and a half hour lockdown, 15 minutes in the yard and 15-minute shower when the shower comes up to your cubicle. But that's the problem, right? Again, nobody. If I was Donald Trump and I heard about the ticks, I'd be like, yeah, we're going to open up an investigation. Go ahead, RFK, find out who did it. And then we're going to string them up on the White House lawn. I don't want to be allergic to beef. To the point that I don't even want to take my animals out into any areas that are known for ticks. I don't even want to take them hiking or anything else, which we shouldn't have to have that kind of fear.
I agree. And one of my platforms, I'm very serious about this tick problem. Are you familiar with the screwworm and the screwworm eradication?
Familiar with the screwworm, yeah.
If we did that, if we eliminated the screwworm all the way down to the Darien Gap, we can get rid of these ticks. Okay? And they go, the environment.
Really?
I want
they got rid of the screwworm pretty well, George. They did a really good job. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Oh, wait, you said if we can get rid of it. Wait, what did you say? If we can get rid of the screwworm, we can get rid of ticks?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you said something different. Okay. Gotcha.
And there's no doubt. But again, it's the sourcing of that information. When we talk about, we had some experts, we've had them on the show before, when it comes to, atmospheric spraying, right? Give it any name you want. We know there's truth in it. We've seen the materials that people have tested. As president of the United States, if you're really protecting the American people, you'd shut that program down. You'd be like, okay, whoever's doing that's over with. If you wanted to stop some of this stuff, we talk about. I mean, I have to tell you, when I hear about things like the Bilderberg or Davos or the Trilateral Commission, and I hear my immediate mental response is fuel air bomb. I can clean that up right away. Well, just next Davos, I'll just fuel air bomb the whole thing. And, that's the problem when you have people that have, vast amounts of money at their disposal, vast amounts of linked power through different government agencies. And they're saying, we're going to make a decision against Alex Jones. We're going to make a decision against Rex. The Big Ming Show, we need to get them suspended right away off of all these platforms. We can't have them talking the truth. Because those fucking guys, they're uncontrollable. The point is, that's the issue. And that's what goes to my bully thing, right? I don't like George Soros and Alexander Soros. And I have a solution for that. I mean, they've got a mansion up in upstate New York they're at constantly. My solution includes maybe a 6 or 8 man team. And then we don't have to worry about George Soros. I don't like Reid Hoffman. I think he's destructive to the country. When I look at what he's done and where he's put his money.
We thought Trump was going to come in and do and arrest the criminals, try people for treason, convict them, and punish them accordingly. And you look at it, talk about Bill Gates, talk about George Soros, talk about all these people. It's come out on record, the SPLC, largely funded by George Soros, they're the ones inventing and manufacturing all the racism and division and KKK stuff within the country. It's all fake. This is a key point of my political platform. I am just young enough or just old enough to remember a time when Americans got along on the basis of being Americans and didn't hate each other off what color, religion, gender, ethnicity they were, right? That has been taken from us. And what we now have is this petty politic where it's culture war. We tear the other people down. If it's a Democrat, they want to tear the Republican down, Republican, Democrat. You're not a dog. You're not a donkey. You're not an elephant. You're a fucking human being. And this is
with you. Yeah. We talk about traitors and patriots. We talk about the quote from Ulysses S. Grant, right? And my opinion is the division and chaos is a tool. It's a tool because if you can hate me, if you're nonpartisan, or if you're a liberal and you can say, I hate Lance Migliaccio because he's a conservative American, or I don't believe in the political party system. I think it's the David Copperfield. It's the sleight of hand. Because if you can create division and chaos, if you can say, hey, Rex, I don't know if you heard what Lance said about you when he was backstage. Did you know what he said about you? If you can create that, right, that false narrative with version. It's like look over here while I make the elephant disappear over here. I can make the rabbit pop out of the hat. That's the ugly part, right? And for me, the funding of it. I mean, listen, George Soros, what he got? Open Society had 64 different NGOs that were getting money from USAID. How is that not a crime? Totally. You know he's funneling it and he's causing what he's doing. He's a hateful guy. Now we got to worry about Alexander Soros being hooked up with Huma Abedin. You know what I mean? Huma Abedin. And when we see it, and it's common sense, we talk to our audience, which, by the way, guys, we love you. Thanks for always giving us your time. But here we are, Rex, and I'm not sure how we fix it. I don't know what we do. We thought we were going to have, I don't know if I want to call him a knight in shining armor, but we assumed that there was going to be some swamp draining. And George is hopeful.
There would be a man sword to have that sword rammed through our gut. That is how I feel. And y'all may have a different perspective. That is my emotion on it. I mean, Trump was empowered through the zeitgeist of American liberty and took on that spirit. It was empowered by that flame and turned around and burned us with our own fire. And that's what hurts the most. The Democrats, it's like, it's cold, it's oppression, it's cold, it's oppression. He's hitting us with, hey, everything you voted for, everything I said I was going to do, actually, when I do the opposite of it, I'm fulfilling my promises and screw you. And then what do you say to that? What's the response? You don't have a response. You're just kind of, cucked by the system.
The tough thing, man, you know what I can't stand? If George and I, we applied for the White House press pool. We got nothing. We got crickets back. We didn't even get a possibility. and I said this. I said, it really would be the right thing for Trump to do to take over Mar-a-Lago and put everybody down there for the weekend, all the podcast hosts, all the big people, and just pay for the whole thing. Have everybody fly in, all the big shows, all the medium shows, all the small shows, everybody that went to work for him, and just say thank you. But instead, we got a slap across the face, right? We got, bent over, dry, no lube is what we got. And you're right, it's offensive. I have a problem with it because I expect people, it's just like a softball interview, right? If I come in and I'm, and I try to frame myself in a different way, or if I've got Donald Trump sitting across from me, he would never do my show, because when they gave me what I was allowed to talk about, I'd probably say, hey, Mr. President, I can't do this. I'm going to ask you questions that nobody else asks. I'm going to ask you why we haven't gone into Fort Knox. I'm going to ask you why the people from the Russian collusion hoax, why hasn't anybody in the judiciary been arrested? Why aren't people in the Department of Justice being arrested? Why aren't congressional members? They're violating the laws of the United States. Why aren't you enforcing what happened to draining the swamp? He would never do the show because he wouldn't want to get into that with me. And I'm a fellow New Yorker. I'd be like, look, you're a fellow New Yorker. If you want to get into it with me, we can get into it. We'll just talk shit like we would when we were kids on the street. I'm happy to do that with you. But I'm not going to softball with these bullshit fucking questions you just funneled to me. It's not going to happen. Not because I voted for you and I believe in you.
And you know what that is? You know what that is? If you don't do that, it shows that the coalition is weak and that you're not serious about making real change if you can't actually hold people's feet to the fire and hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. Like I've been very anti-Trump. Okay, I'm open about that. But my father has still, been trying, to find the silver lining. He's been trying to find something, and he's just, not only is he not, rewarded for that, he is destroyed for that, because it's almost like if you try to compromise, you try to say, hey, I'm trying to be a little critical, a little rational here. Please be introspective and hear what I'm saying. They make the assumption, because you're trying to be nice and trying to be gracious and trying to hear what they have to say, that you have like this default position of obedience to them. When in reality, you're just both trying to have obedience to the principles that you're supposed to enact, supposed to do.
Let me ask you this, Rex. If you were in the administration, let's say theoretically, and by the way, I'm going to be running for office. I'm going to run for the Secretary of Gaming Commission in Cuba, so I can get my people back there. We're going to run all the casinos again. I'm going to get all the Italians back in. We're going to come and run the casinos. Of course, I'm being sarcastic, but if you were in the administration, would you have allowed the press pool to get loaded back up with mainstream media? See, I'd have thrown them all out. I said, no, you guys aren't allowed to come in the press pool anymore. You've been bullshitting the American publics too much. Go fuck yourselves. And by the way, I'm taking your FCC licenses for these lies because you misrepresented what you said you were going to do when you submitted for the FCC licenses and the airwaves. You said you were going to tell the truth. I'm done with your biased news. I'm shutting you down, you down, you down, you down. Bye. See ya. That would have been me. Because I'm not gonna suck somebody's dick that tried to screw me over. I wouldn't have had Mark. I would have looked at David Sachs and I said, well, if you want to lose your job in about 3 seconds, go ahead and invite Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates to the White House.
Well, that's the thing, and it goes back to the example I gave of like Jesse Waters, Rachel Maddow being able to say whatever they want with no consequences, and then us being punished for something that's
yeah.
Opinion. Here's the thing, right? Trump has this pathological need to be liked. And all those people that ragged on him on the mainstream media, they're being a lot nicer to him now. Have you noticed?
No, they're kissing his ass. Disgusting.
That means that he likes it and he's like, okay, I've won. And I get to have you capitulate yourself to me every single day. He doesn't realize he's being fooled and tricked into doing what they actually want him to do. And I totally agree with you. If it was me from day one, if I'm in charge, if I'm the press secretary, we're getting all the dinosaur media out. We're getting all the alternative media in, left, right, whatever. We're going to have crazy leftists asking crazy questions. We're going to have Christian nationalists asking questions. Who cares, right? But the thing is, it's going to be wide spectrum, and it's going to be all these different power blocks of the public, and they're going to have an opportunity to have their voice through the person that they watch, the person that's going to do reporting for them or coverage. And that's what I would have done. I would have just opened it up to everybody, man.
Yes,
Lance, we got to cut because... I'm
okay.
Sending you texts.
Rex, we're definitely gonna have to have you back on. Just so you know, we got to definitely do this. So really quick, you got an event you're doing. I want to make sure I cover this. Trevor Fitzgibbons, he's both a friend of ours. Talk about this event you're participating in.
Yeah, Rage Against the War Machine. It's in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I believe it's kind of like a part of, adjacent to the Libertarian National Convention and things going on around there. Really looking forward to having an actual microphone to speak my piece and speak my mind on the First Amendment and on being anti-war. I went to this thing. I don't know if you saw it on social media. It was kind of a dud. It was called America First United. All right. Mm-hmm. And at this event, I was coming to this event because I wanted a microphone to talk about what had happened to Infowars. We've just been shut down. And of course, the wars, the genocide, the money wasted, all of it. And I didn't get that opportunity. I was on a panel with the woman who was doing her comedy routine and with a guy who was trying to make a grand point about the Jews. And I wasn't there to do that. I was there to talk about being pro-America, pro-human, and anti-war. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do at Rage Against the War Machine. Really looking forward to that. Anyone wants to stop in and watch that live stream, I think it's going to be basically everywhere. Joe Ken is going to be there. Larry Johnson is going to be there. Like Garland Nix. All these people that I love and that I really respect are going to be there. And I have to say, I'm just like, the guy with like the stick with like the bandana tied around it with all its stuff. That's just how I feel. But at the same time,
I love that about you, man. You really brought that message.
Thank you, man.
All right, George is out of time, but stick around for a minute, Rex. Don't go anywhere. All right, listen, if you love the show, thumbs up, comment, share, subscribe. Do whatever you can to support us. Take the short form, take the long form. We're not going to come after you. Spread the message. Let's fix this. Educate and unify the country, of course, one episode at a time. George, last words.
You guys have a blessed day. Rex, thank you so much for coming on. We definitely have to get you come on again and do a little round table here. You guys see you tomorrow. Later.
I might have to let it drop. Said got it hella big, had the money back again, get like said had the hella big.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At CSPOA.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit CSPOA.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's CSPOA.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
What if you could predict your financial future? And what if you could trade on it? Introducing Block Trust IRA, the future in your hands. An astonishing 88,000 millionaires were created last year from the Bitcoin boom, and you could be next. Block Trust IRA is the only crypto management firm powered by AI-driven strategies, ranked #1 in the world by Bitcoin Magazine. The Block Trust IRA platform is built for everyone, from first-time buyers to seasoned investors. Predictive AI technology that was once only reserved for insiders and elites is now available to you. It's time to leave the old buy and hold strategies behind. Your assets are protected with military-grade security, offline cold storage, and $200 million in insurance. Visit BlockTrustIRA.com to book your free consultation and ask how to claim up to $2,500 in deposit bonuses today. Bitcoin changed the game. AI changes the strategy.
Hi folks, I'm here today to introduce you to the Prepper Bar from PrepperBar.com, the most unique precious metals product we have seen in a long time. These 62-gram bars are perforated and easily broken down into your choice of 3 different sizes to fit a multitude of needs. Whether it be from asset protection from inflation, economic turmoil, or its unique utility for barter and trade, the Prepper Bar makes a perfect gift for all the precious metal lovers out there. Exclusively made here in the USA and selling out fast. Available in both gold and silver, these slim Prepper Bars fit neatly in your wallet, and their utility enables use in any situation.
Forged through rigorous training and honed by the finest instructors on Earth, these K9 units serve beside our nation's warriors as they fight to preserve what we cherish. When these warriors complete their duty, the Warrior Dog Foundation provides them with a home deserving of the service they've given us all. At our state-of-the-art kennels, they receive rehabilitation and care suitable for heroes, because that's what they are. Be a part of giving them a future today. Visit WarriorDogFoundation.org.